Dig Deep Podcast number 19 with rookie pro triathlete Maddy Pesch in the house. Let's do this.
Hey.
Maddy Pesch, thank you for being on the show. How are you?
Great. Thanks so much for having me. I'm super excited to talk to you.
Oh, really?
And meet.
Me too.
We met briefly last year.
Well,
but it's good to connect again.
Likewise, I agree. I was thinking about the time I met you, and I think it was like this. You correct me if I'm wrong. We were at the pool, and we're at the same pool, and I was in one lane, you were in the other, and I think I said something like, "Hey, are you Maddy Pesch on Instagram?" And you're like, "Yes." And so I think I introduced myself. I think I said my Instagram handle first, and I'm like, "This is me," and so and then I think we've been in touch since then. So that means was that your first time in Boulder?
Yeah, it was. I was only here for a week about a year ago, so just
2017.
been a year.
Yeah. So welcome back again. If I understand, you're going to be here for the next couple of months.
Yes, 2 months.
2 months. Cool. We're going to talk a lot about all things triathlon and Wisconsin and growing up in Minneapolis, right? Minnesota. But I wanted to start this conversation first by, I'm going to give you some numbers, Matt, and you tell them what they mean to you, because I saw this post that you put on Instagram the other day. 5 hours, 100 miles, 5,700 feet ascent. What is that?
That was my first century ride.
All right, awesome.
Yeah.
So century ride means 100 miles, right? Talk more about it.
Yeah, well, that was the longest ride I've done. Ever, and it was one of the hardest as well. So I was super excited for it. I knew it was going to be a great day. I knew it was going to be a challenging day, but we were just up there with the Team Series crew when up around Estes Park and such. And it was just my goal to try to stay on the wheel of those in front of me.
Yeah.
One, to push myself, and then also because I had no idea where I was.
Right.
So I just did not want to get dropped and lost. So, just really was pushing it, and it was great. It's always nice to hit those milestones that are outside of races and in your training. You can see that progress in so many ways. Because
before that ride, your longest distance riding a bike was 56 miles, the Ironman, half-Ironman distance, or maybe more?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I've done some bigger rides, 4 hours, around 80 miles or so, but that was a big ride just because it was up the mountains, and it was the longest ride, but it wasn't just easy pace. It was a tough one with the climbing and some efforts and such, so it was a great day.
What was, I don't know, the most challenging thing about that ride, or something that you remember was extremely challenging? I mean, I'm thinking the altitude maybe, or...
Well, it was for sure these switchbacks.
Oh, really?
I'm trying to... Devil's Gulch Road. It was kind of funny. We stopped at a general store, and we were taking a little break, and we were going to go up those switchbacks, and this guy says to us, he's like, "Oh, that's the toughest climb in Colorado," or something. I was like, okay, here we go. So they're pretty steep, but
really
don't take that long to climb up, but it kind of just got you going right at that midpoint of the ride. So those are intense.
And cool, climbing, I guess climbing with riding a time trial bike is definitely harder than if you're riding a road bike. So you were riding with teammates. I guess that makes the experience a little better. Do you usually like to ride with other people, or just by yourself, or just curious?
Oh, I absolutely love riding with other people.
It makes a big difference.
I don't get the opportunity to do it very often. When I'm back home in Madison, it's a lot out on my own. I have some other triathletes that I connect with. Yeah. But it can be tough to coordinate schedules and such.
Yeah, I hear you.
So being out here, having a team, we're all doing the same thing. It's just so amazing to me.
It's also got to be fun and I mean, great to be able to train with people who push you, probably have more experience doing this kind of thing, or even a little better. I feel that's how you learn and you kind of get to the next level, right?
Yes, for sure. You see how people above you are like executing the sessions and such, and you figure out how you can do that as well. So
yeah,
it's great to be pushed in that way.
So 100 miles, nice. So you've been to Boulder before. This is the second time you're in town. Curious, what is your most favorite and least favorite thing about Boulder so far? And besides, the amazing experience you're having, I guess, training with Team Series and, your teammates. But
okay, yeah. I feel like, my favorite thing about Boulder, it was really cool because right when I came out here, so I'd only been here a week before.
Yeah.
And so I was coming back for a couple months, but the first thing I had was Boulder 70.3. So I was racing, like a day after I got here.
Yeah.
And I was just surprised by like how comfortable I felt here. It was awesome. I don't entirely like know how to get everywhere in town or anything like that, but it just felt like home in a way. I think because so many people that I know support me are here, like teammates that I was excited to train with and my coach. And so just having that there, I felt really comfortable and just at home and happy to be doing the race. Least favorite thing, I don't know. I mean, I guess just having to manage being in a new place, figuring things out, that always takes a little bit of time. Traffic can get kind of crazy, so just trying to do the logistics of everything.
Yeah, of course. But
it's all good. That's all part of just being in a new place and trying to figure out your surroundings.
Right. When did you start doing triathlons? Because your journey to endurance sports started with a swimming background, right? It started with you swimming. Talk more about how and when did you start swimming? I'm thinking, was that in school, in high school, or college? And how did you kind of transition into triathlon?
Yeah, I think so. I started swimming, when I was a upper elementary school, like 12, 11 years old, and I did the high school team all through high school, and then decided to swim in college. So I swam in college at Grinnell College, which is a D3 school in Iowa. Loved doing that. I was not a distance swimmer.
Okay.
I swam breaststroke.
Oh.
So that was always my thing. Love swimming.
I remember seeing a post you put on Instagram maybe a couple of days ago. It was one of those throwback Thursday posts.
Yes.
Where you look really like in the zone, breaststroking. It was pretty cool. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Okay. Sorry.
Yeah. So same mentality, but very much shorter races.
Okay.
So yeah, I always, growing up, I loved running and I loved biking, but they were always just things that I would do casually with my family and such like that. There was a big pressure in high school to specialize in one sport.
Really?
Like when I was about 16 or so, I joined like a very elite youth club team. It was so I lived north of the Twin Cities, but we would commute to the Twin Cities and be swimming. It was a Edina Swim Club. So once I joined that, it was kind of very focused on swimming only. But I always really loved running. I think breaststroke, having those, breaststroke is pretty much 80% legs. So
I see.
It's the stroke with the most leg power in it. So I was always had strong legs and such like that. But so I started doing triathlon in college. I think because of swimming just year round all the time, I was just very burnt out. I was excited to be going to college and to be doing swimming, and I loved that, but I couldn't do swimming 12 months in a row just year round anymore. Yeah. So my coach kind of saw that, and we had a little like recreational try that the swim team would put on as a charity event every spring. So I competed in that. It was shorter than a sprint triathlon, but it was enough for me that day.
Wow.
But it was awesome. I just remember like feeling that jelly legs coming off the bike. It was just a totally new feeling.
Yeah.
But I was excited about it, so a couple teammates and we decided to train for an Olympic triathlon later in the summer. So that was sort of my first official triathlon. So that was in 2013.
And who coached you for that? You self-coach or did?
Yeah, just self-coached. Okay. I mean, I think I've always been interested in exercise and such, so I sort of had an idea of how to build your basic training plan, but nothing beyond that. I was just trying to like get the miles in and such, because I'd never run that far, biked that far in a race, right?
Okay.
So that's sort of how my first 4 or so years of triathlon went. I would swim in the winter from October to March or so, and then I would do triathlon from March until September. And so just focusing on the Olympic distance mostly.
Olympic. And I guess amateur or
yes.
Got it.
Yeah, so I never had a coach until I started working with Siri.
I see.
Which was about a year and a half ago now, so right. In 2017.
How did you connect with Siri?
I actually connected with her through my college swim coach. They knew each other like a long time ago. Cool. So I found Siri, but I had no idea who she was. I didn't even know if I really wanted to do triathlon anymore, because I couldn't really see any opportunity in it. I thought that once I graduated college, it was time to be done with sport, and that I should have other things on my plate. But once I sort of realized who Siri was and such like that, I realized that it was just sort of a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. And once I started working with Siri, I was just really able to see what I could do in triathlon, and just sort of fell in love with it again, and really to see where I could go in sport.
Right. So when your coach, Erin, right?
Yes, Erin Hurley.
When she thought of connecting you with Siri, is because I'm pretty sure that she saw in you, potential to be really good at the sport. Do you think that that was the case, maybe, or what do you think that she recommended to connect with Siri?
I think I was just at a point in the sport where I didn't know what I wanted out of it. The thing was that I had qualified for the age group world championships, which I had done a couple times before in like Edmonton and Chicago, and that one was going to be in Rotterdam. So I wasn't sure if I was going to go, but I sort of felt like at the time that it was my last chance to do the world championships, because I was sort of planning on stopping doing triathlon.
Oh, interesting.
So I was talking to her, and I was trying to figure out how I could make the Rotterdam trip a reality, in terms financially and just with the training, what I was going to do with that. And so I think at that point, she just introduced me to Siri as sort of another resource. I don't think either of us thought I was going to start being coached by Siri, but it was just sort of a connection within the triathlon world. And then once I started talking to Siri and Beck, then I just got connected with the team and just became a part of the team.
Right. And how did your process of training with Siri start? Like, did you come here first, and were you we're here to see if the relationship would work, and then you later on committed to work together? How did that go?
Yeah, so the two of us had a couple of conversations just to sort of figure out what my goals were, if I was going to be committed to what Siri wanted me to be committed to. And it was very different for me, because it was a decision that I had to think about, make really quickly. And for me, up until that point, I was always playing it safe. I would never take risks and go for opportunities. And so I was really unsure about it, but I really wanted to do it, and Siri was just always talking about making decisions from your heart.
Yeah.
And so I just decided to make that decision from my heart to work with her. And so once that started out, I didn't come to Boulder until the summer. This was like in March or so. So the first starting out was all online, and that's what we do when I'm back in Madison. But so I'm not sure if she knew right away sort of how little experience I had, because, you know, I had these lofty goals of the age group world championships, age group national championships, and how I wanted to place there. But I had no training experience in running or biking really at all. Like, I'd never run farther than 6 miles really, and I'd never done like a bike trainer workout or anything other than just going out and doing some miles. So I had a lot of questions in the beginning, but I had to learn fast. So I just, you know, pushed forward, and it was great from there. You know, just improved quickly.
So when she started coaching you last year, was that to get you ready for Rotterdam?
Yep, that was the big race of last season.
And that was when last year?
It was last September.
Last September. And so you finished, that's your first world championship, and then you finished second. Right.
Oh, I had gone to 2 age group world champs previously.
You're right.
Yeah. But that was the first time I'd ever been really in the running for the title. I ended up taking second in my age group.
Nice.
So, yeah.
How'd that feel?
Oh, it was great. I think just every race last season was a huge surprise to myself. Just realizing how much more I had within me than I thought I did. And that's something I just still try to remember now going forward, that you always think you have some sort of limit in your head of how much you can do and where you can go. But I think most of us tend to have a perceived limit that's less than what we can actually do.
Right.
So that was just cool. You know, I just did my best, ran my hardest, and I always think back on that race to motivate me.
Yeah.
You know how you the winner, she passed me like in the last kilometer. So every time I need some extra motivation, I just imagine her passing me again, and
I love that, and
how I'd want to change that next time. So
that's awesome. You reminded me of Lionel Sanders. He has I think a YouTube channel these days, but he finished second last year, right? And I think he was about to win Kona, and then he gets passed by, can't remember the name of the Patrick Lange, I think he's a German triathlete who ends up winning the race. There's this moment where somebody took a photo of Patrick passing Lionel, and you know, you can see Patrick on first place and Lionel behind, and with his face, Lionel's face, like tons of pain. So he printed that photo and he put it on his thing, and I was like, that is so cool. I really want him to win this year, because man, last year he was just so close, and I don't know, you see that the guy trains hard and you're kind of rooting for him, like the underdog. Anyway, but I can totally see, you know, why that can give you that motivation. When did you turn pro?
I just started, my first race was in April. So a few months ago. Okay.
So it's not, because before this, with this interview, we were talking about you doing your first half-Ironman distance in Florida. That was January, right?
Yes.
And your first half-Ironman, and gosh, you won it. That was quite an amazing experience. Talk more about that. It's called the HITS Tri Series, right? You finish in 4 hours and 47 minutes.
Yes.
What? 52 minutes before the runner-up? That's crazy. Talk more about it.
It was a very fun race. Yes. So that was my last amateur race. And so I had an idea this season, you know, I wanted to do that race because I wanted to see what the 70.3 distance would be like. It's something that I really want to do seriously now, racing, but I never done it before. So what I went down there to Florida. I was actually there with the Grinnell swim team. It was pretty cool. So the race was in Naples, and we would go there every year for our training trip. And so I was down there at the same time the team was, and I did some work for them with the coaches and such like that. But the race was really cool. So it was funny because, January in Florida, you can get anything. I mean, of course, you're not really going to get snow very much, but you can't just expect it to be hot. And so it was a chilly day outside, especially when we started. The water was in the 60s. The water was warmer than the air. The air was like in the 50s. And so they had a lot of people decide to do shorter distances or drop out of the race or such like that. But it was super fun. That was the first time I ever did a race in the ocean. So that was just another element for me as well. Coming from the Midwest, there's not a lot of ocean races out there. So I enjoyed sort of getting that experience of swimming in the surf and such. Of course, it's not too big of waves in the Gulf, but just a different experience.
Is it much harder? Because I've never done open water swim in the ocean. It's always been lakes or rivers, like in Ironman Louisville. That's crazy. I think the only time I've done ocean swim was when I did Galveston 70.3 last year, but I think that, you don't deal with tons of waves and things like that. It's more like, if you're swimming in a lake or something, but is it much harder, like that kind of swimming?
I think it's just all what you make it, like being in different bodies of water. And I still have so much to learn about open water swimming. Yeah. I just swam in pools my whole life. And so, yes, you really have to make sure that you're going out and you're recognizing, where are the waves, where are the currents. And I've made some mistakes in that in the past. So it's something that I've been prepared for, and then something that I've also learned the hard way. Yeah. So I think it's just really important to stay relaxed and working as hard as you can on the swim. I've always just tried to focus on the next buoy ahead, especially in races with more difficult conditions. Not try to get overwhelmed. You can get disoriented really easily, but just keep your focus forward.
You just reminded me of Ironman Boulder last year. I got I don't know, some kind of anxiety thing, like seconds within the beginning of the race. I remember thinking, okay, I'm done. And then the first thing that came to my mind was my wife, like thinking she's going to be so disappointed. She's not going to like accept any kind of DNF from me, so I better keep going. And then I also thought of Beck, my coach back then. But it was just hard to, I don't know, I was really well trained. I felt strong. And things like that happen. I even remember in the section where I was about to finish the race, I got a cramp in my right leg. I've never ever had anything like that, and it was scary because luckily I was wearing a wetsuit. Because I thought if I stop swimming, at least I'm going to be able to like float a little bit. I remember calling the kayaker and saying, hey, this is happening. Just so you know, I'm going to keep going because I can see the arch with the finish sign, at the very end of the swim. But I said, please keep an eye on me just in case. But it's intimidating. But tell me, moving from an Olympic distance to half Ironman distance, talk more about that experience of covering longer distances. What kind of strategies do you use, if any, or in general, that experience?
Yeah, it took some adjustment for me. I still wasn't really had to do quite a bit of work on my run. So I feel like I'm finally at that run mileage, having been training it for about a year and a half now. I've sort of built up those muscles, so that's been a major accomplishment for me. But I think the biggest thing was just recognizing that you still had to put in the effort. So it's, you still have to race the half Ironman really hard. And so I feel like just being out there for longer. You experience more adversity. There's more sort of mental blocks you have to overcome. But I really like it. I love the 70.3 distance, actually. I thought that after my second one, but I thought, okay, better give it a few more before you decide if you actually love it or not. But what I really like about it is that you do get to play that mental game a little bit longer. There's time to like settle into each discipline. So I feel like I can get into the bike, I can get into my effort, I can get into the run in the same way. So you do have to do a lot more of like managing your effort compared to like the shorter distances. Correct. Where you just try to go absolutely as hard as you can the whole time. And you're still doing that in the longer distances, but there's a lot more to keep track of in terms of your nutrition, your hydration. Exactly. So there was a lot for me to learn. There's still so much for me to learn, but I'm loving the new distance.
So 70.3, are you thinking maybe full someday, or?
I don't want to like say anything because I think that I'm just trying to stay in the moment, you know. I will say that a year ago I thought, no way, never doing that. Now, just like knowing myself, I think I probably will someday. But I'm all about taking it one step at a time. You know, a little while ago, I never thought I'd do a 70.3. I just didn't think my legs could handle it. Honestly, I didn't believe that. So I just think that I'm very much about setting small goals, accomplishing that, setting the next goal and accomplishing that. I have very large goals, but I also just want to focus on the current year, the next race, and think about exactly what I'm going to change for whatever's next.
And what's next for this year, in this year, 2018?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the next thing for me is the Nations Escape Triathlon.
Oh,
and that's going to be on September 9th. So that'll be Olympic distance.
Is it like in Philly?
It's in D.C. Mm-hmm.
Is that... So when you say Escape, is it like a similar format as Escape of Alcatraz?
Yes. So the Escape Series, I think they have about... Okay. Yes, I think they have about 5 or 6 triathlons. And they did do one in Philadelphia earlier in the year. This will be the first one I'm doing in the series. But the idea is that the series races all lead up to the Escape from Alcatraz triathlon, which would be in 2019.
Oh.
So
you're going to jump out of a ship?
That would be a cool ocean swim for sure. Yeah, that one's definitely on my bucket list.
Yeah, I don't know. I've heard that the water is so cold. But yeah, a lot of people have fun. So this is such a random question, but I was just reading it here in my notes. You love sweets.
Oh.
You love sweets. You have a favorite?
How did that get out there?
Well, I'm doing my homework. I don't know. Do you have any kind of favorite dessert? And have you found any place here to go?
Oh, man. Well, I've been to one ice cream place, but now I can't remember the name of it.
Glacier?
So,
Sweet Cow?
Yeah. That's where I've been. Yeah,
Glacier. Awesome.
It's very good. Yes, I do have a very large sweet tooth, which I do have to contain sometimes in triathlon.
Yeah.
But I find other ways, you just sort of, like eating healthy is really important to me, but balance is also very important to me as well. So I don't think there's anything wrong with having something sweet.
Yeah.
But yes, love ice cream, love chocolate, can't deny it. Donuts.
Donuts, also good. That's something that I always crave every time I finish a race. It's hilarious. And it's not like the fancy gourmet donut. It's like donuts, like the really cheap things that you can buy at Walmart. It's just so good with milk. I was gonna say, the next time that you go to Glacier, or I don't know if you had, my favorite flavor is cookies and cream. Anything that's vanilla and Oreos is the best thing ever. But okay, so we covered that topic. That's good to know. Yeah, I mean, here, I don't know, I never really go to any particular place. If I want to have a sweet, it's just because I'm buying, like, sometimes I go to Whole Foods and buy like food from the food bar. I don't buy my groceries there because it's crazy expensive. But like when I want to buy some kind of lunch or dinner, and they also always have like, I don't know, pastries and stuff. So it can be a little tempting. But donuts, yeah. Have you been to the Buddha Donuts here in Denver? Have you heard of that place? So it's supposedly a really famous donut shop that I think started in Portland, and I think I learned about
Voodoo Donuts.
Voodoo Donuts, yeah.
Okay,
Sorry,
I've been to the one in Portland. Yes.
So you know they have one here in Denver.
Okay. Denver or Boulder?
In Denver.
Okay.
It's on somewhere in Colfax, and I was not crazy impressed. I'll tell you that. I remember thinking the first time I heard of them was in some kind of a Food Network show, because every time we go and visit my mother-in-law, we always watch the same shows: Food Network, HGTV, which I like.
Yes.
But I was like, oh, Voodoo Donuts, they look great. And then we learned that they had a store in Denver, and it was good, but it was not that great. I remember having one that had like a strip of bacon on top, and that was good. Do you have any favorite flavor? Donut flavor?
Oh, just chocolate.
Simple. I like that.
Well, maybe not simple chocolate, but chocolate has to be the base of it.
Yeah.
I'd say.
Nice.
But yeah, I think having a sweet is for sure my go-to post-race, especially because they're usually easy to digest.
Yeah.
When you just need those calories back. But as far as during training, I sometimes have to make other decisions.
Do you get really hungry after a race, or do you get hungry few or several hours after finishing your race?
I would say for sure after a few hours later.
Yeah, right.
I think the big thing is that, if you're feeling properly, of course your body is getting really tired, but you have enough to get you through the race. So people ask me that quite a bit, actually, if I'm just starving after workouts. And actually, no, I never really am, because I know that if I'm starving after a workout, then I wasn't feeling properly during the workout. So when you're doing really long sessions, you have to be replenishing. So usually after a race, I'll still be going off my last nutrition, and then that metabolism will just be kicking in, and I gotta eat a big meal in a few hours. Yeah. So
yeah, for me, after I'm done, I can't eat anything until maybe 2-3 hours later. Everything feels like gross, and all I want to do is go to bed and take a nap. So out of the three disciplines, okay, you've been a swimmer all your life, biking and running. What would you say is the one that that's been the most difficult for you, or the one where you've had to work the most? Would you say biking or running, or?
Yeah, I would say, well, first, so sort of two of them, but start with the run. Just because, so when I was in high school, I had a stress fracture in my tibia from doing dance. I was a dancer until I was 16 or so. And so I had a stress fracture from that, and it took a very long time to heal. And I think for a long time, I just had all these ideas about how I couldn't build up that strength again because of my weakened bone and such like that. So went on for quite a while. And then finally I just sort of got that bravery to go forward with my run training. And so I think I've had like a large narrative in my head about how I've never been a runner, or I haven't been a fast runner. I'll look at people who have been running their whole lives. And so that's something that I've really had to challenge. And the running is very new to me, but it can be like the most painful, and I think that's super cool, because you can just get your heart rate up there, and there's just really no feeling, I think, than just running as hard as you can. It's something that's just so physical, and so I really like being a runner now and being able to do that. I think it's really cool, as well as just having that endurance to go out on long runs. You can have super hard run sessions, but then you can also have those long, easy runs that are exploratory restorative and just being out there in nature and everything, that's wonderful. And so triathlon has allowed me to do that, to become a runner, something that I just didn't think was going to be part of my life. As far as the race, the running comes last.
Yep.
So you have to get over that mental barrier. It's something I'm still learning to do, but I think it's all about where you're putting your focus and just focusing on your run form. And it's something that I'm just trying to improve in every race. And then the other thing I would say is just swimming. Swimming has always been my strength, but at the same time, it's also caused me to not focus on it as much.
Oh.
And I do think that the swimming is also very mental in triathlon, because you start out and you're in the open water, and the nerves might be the highest.
So hard.
So that's something that I've had to work with quite a bit. And I think being on the pro level has really pushed me to stretch my limits in that way, because I've realized that there's never going to be, as a strong swimmer, I would rely on that as an athlete, and I would just try to get ahead of everyone, and then I would sort of relax. Now I have to learn to go hard the whole time and really be challenging my limits. So I love that. It's something that I'm ready to accept and challenge myself in that way. And so swimming, yes, I grew up with it, but it challenges me every day. It really does.
Yeah, open water swim it's hard, especially when you like you were saying, you swim in the pool and you can do really, really hard workouts. And I don't know, at least for me, when I swim in open water, and when I have to deal with other people, I kind of lose my focus too, and my technique, gets affected, and I'm not the best at, looking or seeing the next buoy. So I tend to lose time going in different directions, and it's frustrating because that you have the capacity to, or the strength, physical strength to be able to just do better. But yeah, open water is one of those things that I keep improving. I'll tell you, the I don't know, the wetsuit, I think it also makes a difference. I used to wear this Orca wetsuit years ago, and it was okay, but it was not great. And then I bought one of the Roca ones, and yeah, for some reason it just feels better, so you just feel more comfortable. So anyway, that's really cool. When you were talking about going hard, especially in running, pushing yourself, what are the things that you usually think of? I'm wondering, especially when you're, in that moment where, it's hard, do you think about something in particular? Do you listen to music? Do you have your music playlist? What do you think? Or is it Siri?
Sure.
Is it Siri telling you, don't stop, keep going? No.
Yes. Well, of course, in triathlon races, you can't have any music.
Right.
So while I do train with music, sometimes you also, when you're out there on the course, it's just you. And so for me, I really just have to keep pulling myself back to focusing on the moment. If I ever start to think ahead to how many miles I have to go, or, to how I'm feeling, any of those outside things, it helps you lose your focus. And it also, it'll make me start thinking about the negatives or how hard it feels. So just going back to the moment, and then just trying to focus on my technique. And running technique was something I didn't even really know existed about a year ago. But now that I've sort of learned different elements of running technique, some of them I've learned the hard way through injury and such like that. But I always just try to keep that proper form and just be thinking about, okay, well, what can I do in the next step and such?
Right.
And that's really hard. It takes quite a bit of practice to develop that mindset, but it's something that I think I'm just trying to always be practicing and training. And that way, when when I practice it in training in the long sessions, the 5-hour bike rides and such, it can help translate to having that better focus on race day.
Yeah.
And that's what I like about triathlon is that, it's so mental and it's so physical, and you really have to train both equally, I think.
Right. What kind of music do you like to listen to? Favorite bands or singers?
If I'm doing a really hard session, I have to listen to like some hardcore, like I would say like dubstep trap music.
Nice.
Such. It has to have like a good electronic beat, like something that gets you going, high tempo.
Yeah.
That's kind of really the only thing that cuts it for me in the hardest sessions.
Yeah.
But outside of that, I don't know. I like hip hop and R&B, all different kinds of music.
Yeah. Do you also have like phases when listening to music? Like, for instance, for me right now, I'm listening to this band called Theory Corporation that I've known forever. They're kind of like a little chill out type of music, but it's one of those things that I listen to one song and then I'm like, oh, this is great. And then you keep listening to the music and then you listen to just that band or that one singer for like weeks, or I don't know if this happens to you, that when you're doing a training run or training ride, sometimes you kind of want to listen to the same song over and over and over. That happens to you before?
Yes, definitely. Well, I'll get a few songs and they'll work for me for a few months, and then all of a sudden something just changes and you got to find new music. So for sure.
Thinking about 2019 for you, do you have an idea of what races you want to do? What do you want to do?
Well, 2018 was really interesting for me because I was doing all these races I'd never done before.
Yeah.
Because of, stepping up to the pro level. And before that, what I would do as an amateur is I would do a lot of local races that I'd done several times. And then I would be doing the age group nationals, and then age group worlds was sort of my routine. Now you can't find as many local races as a pro that will have a pro field. So it's been really cool to go to these big venues. I had never done an Ironman race with the Ironman brand until I did Chattanooga in May. So one thing I want to focus on 2019 is I want to go back to a few of those same courses.
Yeah.
St. Anthony's was my first pro race, and I absolutely loved that race, especially because the community there is so strong. They've been doing that race for 35 years, and everyone was just so welcoming to me. Of course, my nerves are a little high as my first pro race, but they were just so nice. And so I want to go back to that one. Probably go back to Chattanooga again. I would love to do Boulder again, just doing the same races so that I can sort of, see myself in the ways that I've grown and understand the courses a little bit better and see what I can improve upon in those regards. And I'd like to do some different races as well. I don't really know specifics yet, but I really like focusing on 2 distances right now. I like that I can go back and forth between the Olympic and the 70.3, and I think doing each one helps me get better at the other as well. Sort of in the Olympic distance, learning to push it through, the short time, keep everything very simple. And then in the 70.3, continue to build my endurance and dig into those efforts for a longer period of time.
Right. Nice.
Yeah.
And so you're going to be here in Boulder 2 months, and then you go back to Madison. How long have you been living in Wisconsin? Because you went to college in Grinnell in Iowa, right?
Yes.
Okay. So, I'm just curious. So from Iowa to Madison?
After I graduated, I actually spent a year in Seattle. I was doing an internship there.
Ooh.
And then I moved to Madison.
Nice.
So Madison is a great place for triathlon.
Yeah? Really?
Yes. And I actually didn't know that before I moved there.
Oh. But
Ironman Wisconsin is there, and Ironman 70.3 Wisconsin. And there's a very large tri community. So I work at Endurance House in Middleton, Wisconsin. And so all of a sudden when I moved to Madison, everyone was like, you're a triathlete? You haven't done Ironman? And I was like, what? No. When I lived in Iowa, nobody even knew what an Ironman was.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden it was like everyone was an Ironman, which is awesome. I think when you have a race in a community, a lot of people who wouldn't consider doing something like that step up and do it. And I think that's really, really awesome. And there's just a lot of support there for the cycling is great there. Yeah. Different than Boulder, but there are so many great routes in Wisconsin, and we have a lot of great places to train. So I really enjoy living there.
Nice. And so you were in Seattle for a year. How do you like the weather? Oh, too rainy.
Oh, so yes. I mean, I'm from Minnesota, so I know cold, I know hard winters. But the Seattle winter, that was totally different for me. The daylight was lower, and it rained every day. In the Midwest, we'll have very cold, but it'll be sunny outside and such. And so being in the dark all the time, it wears on you mentally. And
yeah, that's what I've heard. My brother lives there, and he likes it. But I also have friends who live there or friends who live in Portland, in Oregon, who they talk about the weather that it's too gloomy, that they miss the sun, that they end up buying all kinds of, I don't know, artificial lights that they put in their house to kind of, make them pretend or make them remember that there's sun around. And
yes, lots of people have those. But Seattle has great training too.
Yeah.
I mean, I swam in the Puget Sound. It was frigid, but it was so exhilarating. So it was really cool being out there.
Yeah, that area is great. I remember one time, one of my a good friend of mine who used to be Olympian, like for cross country ski, he would take me to all these amazing groomed trails outside of Seattle. It was beautiful. It was like miles and miles of flat groomed trails for all things cross country.
Sounds wonderful.
Yeah, it was beautiful. And then one time, this is funny, I signed up to do this 50K trail run, and I was like, it was somewhere in Washington, and I thought, oh, it's got to be really close to Seattle. Well, it ended up being in Bellingham. So no idea where Bellingham was. I get there, and then I learned that it's like a 90-minute drive to get there. So you should have seen me like trying to figure out, okay, now I need to rent a car and where to stay. But it was in this beautiful race called the Chuckanut 50K. I don't know if you've been to that part of the state, but there's this mountain called Chuckanut. You basically go up and down, and that's the 50K. And you see like 4 seasons in one day. It's like, oh my God.
Exactly.
That was rough, but it was so pretty. But yeah, I don't know if I could live without sun. Like here, I don't know, we're spoiled. Like there's sun. I don't know
lots of sun here.
What do people say? Like 300 days out of 365?
That's what they told me at the airport.
Oh, that's funny. Cool. So, what else? I'm just curious for you. Just final question before we wrap this up. Like, how has working with Siri has helped you to like improve not only physically but mentally? Because Siri's philosophy is really, really strong in all things positive mindset and getting to your next level by believing in yourself and things like that. Just curious to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah, well, I think that everyone has like a different coaching style that works for them. And I really, really like working with Siri because she's a very tough coach. She will push you. She doesn't take any sort of she doesn't take any negative mindset, any negative thinking. She's always pushing you to believe in yourself. But all of it comes out of, wanting to get the most out of you that you can. And I think that, it's very inspiring to think about where Siri came from, especially personally, how she didn't start triathlon until she was in her 20s, and how she was able to make things possible in her life that were difficult. And so I think just having a coach that has sort of been where you've been, and able to, have that connection. And so then understanding why they're pushing you to be more, I think that means a lot to me. So I would just say that for me, I can do a lot of getting in my own head, self-sabotaging. So having someone there that's telling me to stay positive, tell myself, helping myself believe, I think that's just really helped me turn things around. Before I started working with Siri, I didn't really believe in any of that stuff. I thought, positive thinking, whatever, how can you possibly think positively all the time? Or, there's going to be ups and downs. But now when I have a down, of course there are downs,
Yep.
but I don't accept those negative feelings. When I start to feel the negative feelings, I don't just give in to them. I start to think okay, well, the negative feelings are here now, but what am I going to do to turn this around, to change them and get myself back to a better mindset? And sometimes when you're dealing with more difficult things, you can't just fix it right away. It takes, I've had some things I've worked through this season that have taken, weeks or a couple months to really start thinking differently about, but I'm never settled with the negativity. I always want to figure out now a way to change that, and that's something that Siri has taught me.
Yeah. It's always fun. Have you done any of the swim sessions where you're super tired at the end of the session, and then Siri says something okay, I want you to try to swim a PR? I remember I had a couple of sessions like that. It was pretty epic. But then at the end of the session, this is the best thing, right? You realize that, hey, I did it. After swimming for an hour or 90 minutes, you're wow, that was pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Well, thank you for being on the show. That was fun.
Oh, thanks so much for having me.
Did you have fun? Nah,
yeah, of course. Blast.
Welcome to Boulder again.
Thanks.
If people want to follow you online, Maddy, where can they find you?
Oh, they can find me at Pesch Maddy Try.
Oh, is it Pesch Maddy? I thought it was Maddy Pesch. Okay, sorry.
No, it's Pesch Maddy Try at Instagram.
There you go.
That's me.
Follow Maddy online, future Ironman world champion. Just for have her first in this podcast. Anyway, Maddy, thanks for stopping by. Appreciate it.
Thanks so much.
Bye.